Guys, it's Alex here. Today, we'll be taking a deep dive into DeepSeek v3. A few people have been commenting about me trying this out and seeing how it stacks up with other APIs. DeepSeek v3 is actually a completely open source model, and you can download it and run it from a server. Now, it is a 685 billion parameter model, which means it won't run that easily on a computer that doesn't have a series of GPUs. Definitely not something we will be able to run locally on our MacBook. But if you do want to have something comparable, there is DeepSeek Coder v2, which is a much lighter model, but still is quite comparable with both GPT-4o and Claude Sonnet on coding application. And it is quite easy to install. Just go to your Ollama and it will install the model, and then you can run here. And it's quite good for very light coding questions. So I will ask it for Python code, and it should give an output that would actually run pretty effectively. So if you guys want a free open source model that you can run on your computer, I'd recommend this one. And it does give out pretty good code. And you can run this with OpenWebUI, which I have a video about that I'll put in a link in the description on how to install. Getting back to the main point of the video, DeepSeek v3 is very, very good. It is comparable to both 4o and Claude 3.5, and sometimes better in coding and reasoning applications. So I'm very excited to test it. But what makes me more excited is seeing the pricing details. It is so cheap. And right now, until the 8th of February, you have very cheap pricing at a discounted rate. So it should cost us barely anything to use this. I've loaded up $2 USD, and I believe that's only 7.14 million tokens estimated, and that's quite good for only $2 USD. So I can't wait to start testing this later in the video. But let's first test the DeepSeek ChatGPT interface. This is completely free, so very, very awesome. DeepThink is a self-reasoning option that you can enable, and you can also enable search when you wanted to search the internet. So it already has the same capabilities of GPT Pro, but instead of being $200, it's free. Let's get it thinking to make a Python application. Wow. So already off the bat, you can see that as it is thinking and doing its self-reasoning, it's actually showing its self-reasoning output. So you can actually see how it thought that it would actually run this application, both installing the Python SDK, authenticating API. This is very cool. And after it's done its reasoning and has its plan, it actually initializes its code, creates a good Python script that I believe would run quite well. So that's pretty cool. And I believe that's actually not too bad, considering it's free. So Cline is very good with Claude 3.5 Sonnet, but this time we're going to test it with DeepSeek. Okay, so I'm probably just going to input the same exact and see if I can do this. I've allowed auto approve, so it has complete control of the computer. Let's see how this goes and see, most excitingly, the API cost. I'm wondering how much this will cost in the end, especially since it's doing so much code right now for barely anything. There must be some caveat to this. So while that's running in the background, I actually am going to look for the caveat. And there's the caveat. The servers are located in China. So I would say that the privacy policy, even though there is a pretty good privacy policy on their website, I will take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, look at it go. It's building everything. It's even created a requirements.txt file. Okay, so we'll finally been asked approval for this installation of both the virtual environment for Python and the different Python libraries that are required to run this. And I will create a new API key for this. It's now asked me for a new API key, so let's set one up. We'll skip through the development process using Cline and DeepSeek. It definitely had a lot more back and forth than using Claude Sonnet, but the tokens utilized didn't cost that much. And as I was doing this, I kept commenting on how cheap the API costs were. So for the extra work, it isn't that bad. Okay, so after a bit of coding and working with the chat to build a working application, we have actually reached a finished product that can so far do the minimum of what I required, which is to use Python and DeepSeek API to scan a document and find the key points. So let's give it a go now. And that should be exactly what we want to see, hopefully. Now, the actual use of DeepSeek API as just a generic LLM API is actually not so bad. For this application, I specifically asked it to use the DeepSeek API in the application itself. And that's like that. Yes, this is perfect. This is a very pretty good app actually. If I tried it with bigger file, it would take longer and probably use more tokens, but honestly, I am very happy with DeepSeek v3. I do think that there is that privacy issue, but other than that, I would say it's probably the best one to use at the moment. I do find that when using Cline, however, I do get faster output and more, I guess, less mistakes from using Claude Sonnet. But here we barely broke 2 cents for the whole application and uploaded 684,000 tokens and downloaded 7.7 thousand tokens. And the caching was pretty big. We only used 2 cents, so that's quite impressive. Yes, Sonnet is much more better in use case for Cline, but at this price point, it can do almost as good a job for a fraction of the price. Thank you to my subscriber that commented, try out DeepSeek with Cline, and we're very lucky that Cline is always updating and adding more API providers. I do love using Anthropic's Claude API, Sonnet, and Haiku for quicker and dirtier results, but at this point, for the price point, Sonnet is much more expensive for cache writing, output and input per million tokens, and I will probably end up using DeepSeek while it's still on discount because the price is so incredibly cheap. So if you guys like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think about DeepSeek v3. Are you impressed with it as much as I am? And if you'd like to see more videos, comment down below what you'd like to see next. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Alex. See you next time.